Bedridden, misdiagnosed, and told it was all in her head, Deborah Weed turned that pain into a movement. Stay with us for how one penny sparked a midlife reinvention. Welcome to Empowered Midlife Reinvention and Wellness. We're Lizzie and Deana, the founders of the Matadoras, and we believe midlife isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your best chapter yet.
After years of helping women heal from toxic relationships, we realized something. Important healing is just the start. Reinvention is the real magic.
We both got divorced during midlife, and we know what it feels like to look around and realize that what once felt normal, whether it was healthy or unhealthy, is gone. The kids are older, and suddenly the question becomes, now what?
Our goal is to help you change those now what moments into let's try this. Whether you've walked through loss, survived heartache, launched your kids into the world, or simply felt a tug for something more, this space is for you.
We'll explore everything from wellness, hobbies, beauty, and mindset to travel, faith, friendship, and fun.
Because finding yourself again isn't just possible, it is your birthright.
Welcome to Empowered Midlife.
Let's reinvent together.
Today, we're honored to welcome Deborah Weed, the founder of the Self-Worth Initiative and the visionary behind the Quills Up Movement and the Paisley the Musical. With decades in marketing, entertainment, and reinvention, Deborah helps women rise from rejection, betrayal, and burnout. She's a bold storyteller who says, take your quills back and rewrite your story. Get ready for a brave, funny, and heartfelt conversation about reclaiming creativity, power, and worth. Deborah, we are so glad you're here today, and we can't tell you how excited we are to hear your journey and what brought you here. So what first inspired you to start the Self-Worth Initiative and Quills Up?
Well, it was kind of an interesting story, and it actually started when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I was tremendously sensitive and an empath, like so many of us. But so many people would say, you're so sensitive, you're so sensitive, you're too sensitive. So trying to get away from sensitivity, I went into corporate. That sounds like a good idea, right? From sensitivity to corporate. And I was the director of development for Citibank, 19 branches. And I also worked on a $26 million pavilion. A pavilion is like, it's a small world after all, with Disney and Universal consultants. And I thought I had it all. I had the shoulder pads, I had the wonderful shoes, I had the attitude, and I didn't smile, and I was not aligned with who I was. And I started to learn that there's a big difference between self-esteem and self-worth. But what stopped me or kind of turned me around was actually a health challenge that put me down for 3 years in bed.
Yeah, so talk to us about that.
First of all, the pain was like giving labor every single day. It was excruciating, plus the fact that I had no energy whatsoever. So as any corporate person that was cerebral and thinking and trying to get away from their heart, you go to a doctor, and the first doctor tells me it looks like MS, but it looks like it is in your brainstem, and when we won't be able to help you. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound very good. So being an overachiever, I went to the next doctor, and the next doctor said it looks like Lou Gehrig's. And I'm like, oh geez, Lou Gehrig's. And he's like, yeah, well, let's wait 5 to 10 years and let's see what happens. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like a plan. So then I went to the next doctor, and the next doctor said that it was all in my head. During this time, you have to understand, I went from real sensitive, heart-oriented, to corporate, which was very cerebral, tough, get your shoulder, talk about Matadorias, it's sort of like, yeah, like that. And then I'm in bed, and I realized that there's a difference between, as I mentioned, self-esteem and self-worth. Self-esteem is where you do something amazing, like in corporate. Look, I just did this amazing deal, whatever it might be. You're doing something for the self-esteem. My self-esteem had been tremendously high, but my self-worth, when I was in bed for 3 long, excruciating years where I didn't even know if I was going to go on, I learned that self-worth is something very, very different. It's what we claim for ourselves, and I didn't have that. So there was something that was starting to brew in my mind as far as where I wanted to change my life and how I wanted to move. But it was actually a 1943 pure copper penny that helped to save my life.
Yes, go on. Let's hear about the penny.
So with the penny, what transpired is that ever since I was 16 years old, I used to put together shows. I love shows, and creativity was a natural thing for me. So I heard, ladies, this is so rich. I heard about a 1943 pure copper penny that could be worth, at the time, $250,000. And yet now it's actually worth $1 million. And I got to thinking, wow, I feel pretty worthless right now. I don't feel like I'm worth anything. And if a penny that was actually made by mistake could be worth that much, then how much could I be worth? So it got me thinking, you know what? If I ever get out of this situation and figure out what the heck's going on, I will turn my life around and I will start the self-worth initiative. And I will go on to help families and children and as many people as I can understand self-worth, but in a very innovative, creative way.
Yeah. So what I want to know is, how did you heal from that? Because that sounds like a pretty unlikely story that you would heal from something that terrible and that debilitating, especially being debilitated for 3 years. Do you think that having that epiphany with that penny, do you feel like that was part of your healing journey?
I think that it was, because it let me hold on. It hold on to a concept with creativity and possibility. But I think that the turning point for me is I finally go to a doctor, and from a very simple blood test, get the answer. And what it transpired is that my iron was between a 3 and a 6. Your iron is supposed to be at a 15. My doctor had said you should have been dead. Now, this is a little bit of a trigger warning, but I had been hemorrhaging. I was at that age, and when I went to the gynecologist, they said it was perimenopause. But what it really was a fibroid tumor the size of a grapefruit sitting behind my uterus. I had been literally bleeding out, and they didn't find it because back in the day, they would take the ultrasound and they would do it on top of your stomach, not inside. And that's how they missed it. And I think the most excruciating thing for me was that here I was corporate. I had a voice. I was strong. And yet when you're talking to doctors, little by little by little, it's chipping away at whatever self-esteem I had, and I didn't have self-worth at that time. And everybody abandoned me, because if different doctors are saying different things, what is one to believe? And I really have to sound the alarm here, because there's so many people right now, especially women, who might have long COVID, they might have something with their bodies going on. And as you said, Deana, when it comes down to it, the whole situation with doctors is that doctors will listen to a man, because how often do men go to doctors? Not unless they're pretty much dying. But women, we know our bodies. We know when something is wrong. So we're being very, very proactive, tremendously proactive. And sometimes we get tremendously hurt by going to the people we think are going to help us and trust them. And yet, guess what? Like me, I lost my way. And if it hadn't been for my inherent creativity, I don't even know if I'd be here today.
So what happened next then? After you got a good diagnosis, you finally figured out what was going on. I'm sure you had the fibroid removed and started to feel better. So then you decided to keep your promise then about moving forward. Yeah.
That's a long story of how I started this self-worth initiative. But I think it's important to give the backstory because I realized through this time that so many people don't have self-worth. They don't know what it is and they confuse the two. So if I were to ask you, do you have good self-worth but you have good self-esteem, you'd say, oh yeah. But guess what? If you're not doing anything to prove it and you've got nothing left, it's like the janitor that you see that just loves to clean and he's smiling and he's happy regardless of the money or anything that he's doing, because he does have that sense of self and how much he's worth in the universe. So it's really an important thing. And for me, because I had created musicals and interactive productions ever since I was 16, I was able to use my creativity to create production. The first one was The Luckiest Penny, based on the Penny story, but I changed it a lot. And I was able to inspire thousands of families and kids to understand what self-worth was in a tremendously creative, dynamic way.
Love that. And then you went on to create the Paisley production as well.
Right. And I'm in the middle of the Paisley production, but one of the things that I learned and I got really passionate about, I've had 3 really serious health crises, but for me, they've always been outside of the whole spectrum of what's known or understood. And I was fascinated about how we lose our voice. And I was thinking about little girls. This is kind of where it started. Little girls are committing suicide because of the viral bullying that's going on right now. It's tremendously scary. And I wanted to step up with something that was creative so that we wouldn't give away our power. I was passionate about that because I had to too many people. So I created at first a book for little girls called Paisley's Last Quill. And even though I had been an award-winning artist, I had never done illustrations before. And it took me a year to do the illustrations, but the storyline was based on the whole premise or the idea that porcupines, they use their quills to protect themselves. They put them up, and that's what keeps them safe. But in my imagination and in my world, what I wanted to do is take a little porcupine by the name of Paisley, who dreamed of being a fashion designer. But in the animal fashion world, she has to take her quills and use them as pins because porcupines are thought of as like walking, talking pincushions. And she has this dream, but she's giving away bits of herself, little by little by little, to Savannah, a Cruella de Vil type character who's a taker and only designs couture designs so that people can like feed her ego, but she doesn't really care about any of the models or what they're going through or feeling. And this story was beloved by the little girls. It got all 5 stars. And then I started to hear from moms, hey, that's so cool that you did it for little girls, but what about us? What are you going to do for us? And because I love musicals and always have as a child, it was like, why don't I go for my big over-the-top dream and create Paisley the Musical? And with the last 5 years and the incarnation of another thing that happened during COVID, I was like, let me go for it. And that's where you find me now.
Love that. That's amazing. So it's a book, you said, right? It's a book at this time. It'll be a play, but right now it's a book.
It's a book right now, but right now I'm actually creating it. So this is the fun part. This is what gets really juicy. Usually to create a musical, like think of Wicked or think of The Lion King. To do something like that takes $14 to $40 million. Now, look at me. I do not have $14 to $40 million, but I do have all heart, and I have a story that is like that resonates so strongly with people. I know it's tested, and so what I'm doing now is I'm developing the music, creating a team, and this team, we're scrappy, but I can't wait, because what we're going to do first is we're going to share 5-song album. so that people can get a taste of the music, because to me, music speaks volumes. And from there, we're going to put out an album. And then Hair, if you remember Hair, they started actually with their album, with Aquarius and Let the Sunshine In. And that's how they got so famous. So I'm going to follow that model, because to try to do the production first, if I don't have the monies to do it right, I don't really want to do that. I want every piece to resonate and make a difference. And I think you're going to be really excited when you hear it.
Yeah, it sounds great. So with that said, what advice would you have for a woman like Lizzie and I have really talked about middle age and how middle age can really throw you into a whole different dimension in life, and changes, and personally your body changes, right?
Yes.
Your looks change, like
Yes.
the way you feel changes, your strength, your endurance, all of that starts to go in a different direction. So we really love to talk about midlife things. So what is some advice that you would give any woman that is struggling with their self-worth, whether it be from just those kinds of challenges or whether it be from health?
Great question. Excellent question. And something that I can answer. So my dad was like a Yoda. I got really lucky, but he did things differently. And one of the things that he taught me that I think is essential, especially for a woman in midlife, is that there is a quasi emotion that will stop you every time. So I'm going to ask you, ladies, what do you think that emotion is?
Fear?
Most people say fear. And that's the thing I thought too. But here's what he told me. He said, it's disappointment. And now I'm going to tell you why. When you get excited, especially when you're young, it's so easy to get excited, right? But as you get older, when you get excited, you don't realize that you are a walking, talking chemical factory. So you've got the adrenaline going, you've got the endorphin going. You're so excited because you're up to something, maybe your dream. And then you hit an obstacle. And guess what happens? All those feel-good chemicals leave your body. But you're not conscious of it. You might say to each other, I failed. I don't want to fail. But what really happened is all those feel-good emotions got depleted and it doesn't feel good. But you dust yourself up, because that's what we do. You try again and you're excited. You got the endorphins going and you hit another obstacle, another wall. And once again, things get depleted. And my dad said to me, he said, listen, sweetheart, at a certain point, most people in life, now I'm talking to all of us, they flatline and they don't even know why. They don't want to try because it felt so bad to lose those feel-good chemicals. And I was like, wow, Dad, okay, wow. So then what do I do? And he's like, this is where fake it till you make it comes in. If you understand that you must override the chemical reaction that you had in order to get the zest back in life, then you do it. But if you don't know that, then you go in a corner, especially at our age. And I'm a grandma, so I'm even, beyond middle age. And you give up because it just feels too hard. And another thing that I've really been thinking about, because in addition to the musical, I've been like a natural muse my whole life. I love, love, love to encourage people. And I was trying to think about the difference between failure and regret. So follow me here. Failure. Let's say that with failure, you take a seed and you put it in the ground and your hands get strengthened a little bit. Maybe they get dirty, but you're on this journey and maybe, just maybe, you get a surprise flower. But regret, you never plant a seed ever again. No surprise flowers. You can expect nothing because you decided that to risk failure, or the way that I look at it is disappointment, and then you stop. And that's heartbreaking because we are wise women. We have earned and learned so much. We've got so much to offer the world, and we have inherent gifts. And I encourage all of us to just go back to when we were little kids, figure out what it was that lit us up, and go for it. Like, okay, for me, I'm going for Broadway. We're not talking about like, I want to open up a little shop. No, like it's going to be either a spectacular failure or an amazing success. But either way, I'm getting surprise flowers every single day. I'm meeting people like you. I'm excited to share my story. Things are happening. Miracles are appearing. So are my knees shaking like a little swan that's like, on the pond and it looks so pretty. And then underneath my little feet are going like this. Yes. But at the same time, what an adventure. And I won't have a regret.
No, you won't. And I was kind of like correlating with what Deana and I are doing here. I think we had all those feelings like that fear, the disappointments of our past were risen because of those. It gives us that fear. And then you're afraid of the failure for stepping out, but yet you don't want to have the regret because the regret is harder to live with than the failure of not being successful. That's my take on it. I'd rather give myself 100%, and I'm just that way. Like, I'm a dreamer. I think big because I think if I don't think big, then it's not worth it. So it's like I want to give this 100%, and if it doesn't make it, I can't sit back and go, I didn't have regrets because I did it. We did it. And I agree with you. If nothing else in this journey of surviving toxic relationships in our new YouTube channel, which is Empowered Midlife, Reinvention, and Wellness, which is more where we are now, it's the beautiful relationships and connections you make on these journeys. And I think that's something that should resonate to midlife people. Is we did weather a lot of storms that did kind of suck a lot of life out of us, or as my dad would say, take the wind out of our sails. And sometimes it is hard to get that spark back. It takes a lot more effort to put it back into yourself than it was when you were younger. When I was younger, I was going to school to be a fashion designer.
There you go.
I'm nothing like a fashion designer. And then I went to school to be a travel agent. I still love those things, but that wasn't the core of where I was supposed to go. So I became later on in life a teacher. And now here I am into podcasts and content creation. But all of that built me to who I am today. And you do have to overcome these emotions, and many times our biggest roadblocks are ourselves, because you can tell your goals, your desires, your dreams to family and friends, but I think sometimes they look at you like, yeah, right, yeah, okay, whatever. But it's the big dreamers that will be successful, and not all big dreams will blossom, but a lot of the people that dream these big dreams and go after them, I think they have a lot more self-worth and they build self-esteem if they don't let the rejection hit them. Because I've learned in sales, you're going to fall and you're going to have bloody knees, but the successful people will get back up, bandage those knees, and plow through again. And that's kind of my mentality. I kind of keep plowing through.
Yeah, Lizzie, you're so right. I want to share with you one of my very favorite stories. It was a Touched by an Angel episode. So here's what happened. We have this guy who has Lou Gehrig's disease, and he is a famous artist, and he's so good at what he does, but he's going to die, and he's dying that night. And the angel comes, I forgot what her name is, she comes and she gives him a choice. And she says to him, you can either read a bedtime story to your children, or you can finish the painting that you have created that will keep your family afloat. Big choice, right? But of course, being touched by an angel, he goes and he reads to his kids and he has that wonderful interaction with them, and then he passes away. Then maybe a couple weeks later, the agent comes and you see the painting, and the painting is all covered. And then here comes the agent. She says, well, let me see the painting. And the wife is like, oh, I'm so sorry, but my husband wasn't able to finish it. And she's like, yeah, but maybe people won't know, maybe it still will be okay. So they take the tarp, they pull it off, and it's completed. And the angel says, whatever you start, God will finish.
That's wonderful.
And that story got into my cells, my very cells. Sometimes it's not even for us to complete. But when we have creativity, think about this. I am so passionate about creativity because it's inspiration. We have, especially midlife women or women my age, grandmas, we have inside us boulders, huge boulders, pain, trauma, things that happen, rejection, failure, you name it, it's there. And try as we may, I used to try to solve the problem all the time. That's what I'll solve the problem. I'll solve the problem. I'll solve the problem. And guess what I was concentrating on? The problem. Until I realized that creativity is inspiration. It comes from above. Like if I told you, okay, come up with an idea to write a book right now, you'd probably look at me like, Deborah, come on, But you take a shower and then all of a sudden something drops in you and you're like, I know what to do. Where did it come from? It came from above. And that's like rain to me. That's like water that washes away that boulder. And if you can stay in inspiration and creativity, guess what? You can change your life. Problem is, most of us are trying to solve the problem instead of taking in the inspiration. When we have the inspiration and then we can pour it into the world, miracles happen. And we don't know really what the journey's meant for. Like when I look back, one day I'm going to write my book and people are going to be like, yeah, that can't be true. It's true. And I think about it and I go, during that time, there were so many times I was going to give up, suicidal. I didn't know how I was going to make it, misunderstood, rejected, betrayed, every single, I might have a basket of words. But the thing is that what I essentially learned in the long run is that it doesn't even matter because I know in retrospect why everything happened. I would never understand people profoundly the way that I do. I'd never be trying for a Broadway musical unless I was pushed to the limit. And somebody up there knew that. They said, you know what? Every time she falls, yeah, she does a little something, but we need her to push and go as far and as big as she possibly can because I used to cry, literally cry to God and say, I don't understand. I don't understand. All I came here to do is good. Why is this happening to me? And now I know.
I love that. And I believe in that 100%. I believe those barrier cross moments have profound purpose. If you stand up, just like you said, you just stand up and you don't give up. And you didn't. You went from doctor to doctor to doctor until you finally got an answer. That took you a very long time. And you had to probably give up everything in the meantime because it doesn't sound like you could bring an income in with that kind of pain and exhaustion. But the power of the human spirit is incredible, especially if you truly believe that you're never going to give up on that hope. And then, like you said, you look back and you're like, well, that's what pushed me and made me believe that I was meant for more and that I was still valuable. I mean, to believe that you're still valuable when you're bedridden, that's not easy to do. That's really hard. I like that fake it till you make it. I really love that. Because you're right. Even if you don't believe these certain things or feel these certain things, get up off whatever it is and start making some sort of steps for yourself and for your life and for your progress. Do something, and just that itself. And Lizzie and I know we've said this before that even the act of taking those steps forward in whatever situation you find yourself in, that can build your self-worth. Because like you said, Deborah, you don't know where you're going to necessarily end up. You can go for a goal for Broadway. Not all of us achieve those goals, but the step by step and the act and the moving forward and the picking ourselves back up, like Lizzie said, just keep getting up and keep moving and keep listening to that drum beat in your heart. And eventually you're going to build whatever you were supposed to build, even if it doesn't look anything like what you started with. So really good words, very inspirational. I feel like your story would be so inspiring for women that are facing those giants because, there are so many giants in that phase of life. And like you said, health challenges, You're taking care of aging parents. Your spouse passes away. You're taking care of grandchildren. Financially, for us, it was divorce. It was gray divorce, they call it now, when you're divorced in midlife or beyond. And then you're maybe left with nothing and you don't even know who you really are because this person kind of told you who you were. And now you're trying to figure out who you really are and redefine yourself and your worth and your life because the person that was supposed to value you the most didn't at all. And so here you are left with no money, no provision, really don't even know who you are or if you have any value or if you are maybe the problem, even though you're not sure. It's huge. And so these are such great and inspiring and powerful words. And I really appreciate you taking
Yeah.
us there.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing your journey as you move along. And yeah, is there anything like last little tidbit you'd like to give any listener, whether they're coming through trauma of a separation or divorce or midlife? Any like other words of wisdom?
One other quick story, but this one's a really powerful one. I think that it was when I was at my rock bottom, again for my father. I came to him and bedridden, watching everybody I inspired thrive. That was, I mean, even though I was happy for him, it was so excruciating to be on the sidelines. And I'm like, Dad, oh my God, I just feel like I'm lost. I helped all these people, look at them and then look at me. And he's like, okay, my sweet daughter, go get a bowl of water and some food dye. I'm like, okay, Dad, here we go. So I did as he said. And I put the water there. He said, okay, now I want you to take 3 drops of, and I picked blue, and put the blue drops into the water. I did. He said, okay, now I want you to mix it up. So I did. And he said, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to get those 3 drops that you put in the water. I'm like, that's impossible. I can't get those 3 drops out. He said, exactly. There are 3 drops of you in every single person that you touched. And there's 3 drops of them in every person that touched you. It's impossible to get the catalyst out of whatever the reaction is. So even though you might feel like you are lost and on the sidelines for the rest of your life, look around, my sweetheart. You are making all the difference in the world and you don't even know it.
Perfect way to end. Love it. Thank you so much, Deborah. Your words are inspiring. Your life's inspiring. I'm so excited for your Broadway show. I hope that it is just incredible. And please let us know when your book is ready. And as you progress, I'd really want to keep tabs on how you're doing. And, that way we can just keep being inspired by your story.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and I so appreciate it. You ladies are amazing. Go out and get them.
Ladies, this one's for midlife dreamers. Your best chapter isn't behind you, it's waiting. Start ridiculously small. 1 sketch, 1 song, 1 short walk, and treat it like a non-negotiable appointment. Subscribe for weekly reinvention tools and tag a friend who'll join your creative appointment. Go plant your surprise flower, plant the seed, protect the time, subscribe and grow.